Welcome to the instant sequence tutorial for the Superstar Sequencer. In this tutorial we're going to create some instant sequences and talk about what some of the settings on the instant sequence dialog box do. But before we do that, I want to make sure you're able to get your screen to look just like this. And to do that, click on the Tools menu and click on Layout, and make sure you have CCR mode set and you have 12 ribbons. Light type is CCRs, ribbon orientation is vertical, ribbon shape is straight, ribbon length is full, location of ribbon controllers is bottom, but that doesn't really matter for the purpose of this tutorial. We click on OK, and to get the ribbons to look like this, be sure to click on this button right here that says Wide Grid. So now, to do an instant sequence, we click on the Tools menu, select Instant Sequence, and the Instant Sequence dialog box pops up. Towards the bottom here, there are some instructions. It says to create an instant sequence, click on Open Audio File, then Sequence All, then Play/Stop All. So those three buttons are along the bottom here. We're going to click on Open Audio File, and I'm going to open up the song The House on Christmas Street, which Judy Pancoast has graciously granted me permission to use on this tutorial. It takes a few seconds to process the MP3 file, and now we can click on Sequence All. In this first step, it's going through and analyzing the audio file and figuring out where to put all the triggers for all the different frequencies in the song. And next, it's generating the actual effects, and there it placed all the effects up there in the time layers. So now we're ready to play the sequence. Voila, we have instant sequence.
Let me tell you about this house. There's one in every town.
And I'm going to turn it down so you can hear me. I got to tell you, the first times I got this to work on the computer, it brought tears to my eyes. After creating so much time creating sequences by hand, it was amazing to be able to get the computer to create a sequence in such a short period of time. And I might also note that YouTube videos, the update rate on them, the frame rate is not real good, so these effects will look sort of choppy, but if you look at it on your computer, they look really smooth and look real nice. So we just created an instant sequence, and now I'm going to go over what some of these different things mean in the dialog box. First, I'm going to go over this part here that says ribbon assignments to TCM, and TCM means theme, color, and movement combinations. You'll see right now ribbons 1, 2, 3, and 4 are assigned to TCM1. And ribbons 5, 6, 7, and 8 right here are assigned to TCM2. And ribbons 9, 10, 11, 12 right here are assigned to TCM3. And up here, this is TCM1. The theme for him is Starburst. TCM2, the theme for him is Morphs Colliding. TCM3, the theme for him is Star Dot Twist. And TCM4 is Segs/Twinkles. But you'll notice that TCM4 down here is not used. And the reason I have the default set up to just use 3 of the TCMs is because after I played around with it for a while, I felt it looked best to group the effects by the low range, mid range, and high range. So over here on the ribbons, the ones on the left are triggered by the low notes. These are triggered by the mid range notes, and the ribbons on the right here are triggered by the high range notes. And so TCM1 is the low range, TCM2 is mid range, and TCM3 is high range. Now to show how you can change stuff on this ribbon assignments to TCM, I'm going to go select all 12 ribbons to be TCM1, and I'll show you what that does. Let's click on sequence all. It's going to come up with some dialog boxes that says, are you sure you want to erase everything? I say yes, and it's saying I've got so many effects up there, I can't fit them all in the undo buffer, and so you're not going to be able to undo this, and so I have to say yes, I know that. Go ahead and create another sequence, and there we go. It's created a new sequence, and when we play that, you'll see that all 12 ribbons are using that first theme. And the interesting thing here to me is that even though all the effects are being applied to each ribbon individually in an up and down direction, you end up with horizontal patterns that are produced by the way the frequencies are changing in the song. So that's pretty cool. So now that we have all of the ribbons using TCM1, it makes it easier to show what each of the settings do up here. And actually, first I'm going to show you that up here in the time layers, you see all these effects up here. I'm going to you click on here to shrink it down a little bit so that now it's showing 12 time layers, because what it does is layer 1 gets all the effects for ribbon 1 get put in layer 1. So here's layer 1 here, and ribbon 1 is right here. So and here's layer 12, and it gets assigned to ribbon 12, which is over here. And you'll notice that there's no effects being assigned for ribbon 12 down here, and that's because he's assigned to the highest notes, and there's not any high notes at the beginning of the song. If we scroll over, you'll see that eventually there are some high notes in the song, and he gets triggered. And that's very common in a lot of songs. I get people that ask me that, and just that's why. The highest ribbon is sometimes not going to get triggered as often. But anyway, moving on. Here is TCM1. He's Starburst, and I might mention that the reason he's called Starburst is because if the ribbon were shaped in a star, then this would burst outward. But when they're in a line like this, what you end up with is you notice you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of effects here, and they end up forming a pattern on there. But don't get hung up on the names of these themes. They're just names. You have to play them to see what they look like. So that's the description of the theme. The color here, you notice, it is set to native. Now, native means it's whatever color I created the theme in. This one I created using the colors in the rainbow, blue, purple, red, orange, yellow. That's just what I thought would look pretty. And for this particular theme, native looks really good. But you might ask, well, what are all these other settings in here? Well, this next one is RGBW by group. Let's just select that and try it, and it's going to create a new sequence here. And you notice up here that now each time a theme gets triggered, it is cycling through the colors red, green, blue, and white. And it's saying by group because all the effects in this trigger group are red. And you notice the next time he gets triggered is right here, and now they're all green. And the next time he gets triggered is here, and now they're all blue, and then they're all white. And then it cycles through red, green, blue, white again. And you'll notice this ribbon 1 right at the beginning, he gets triggered 3 times really fast, so he goes red, green, blue, but he doesn't get triggered again until on down here, and then he is white. So they all trigger at their own rate, and so what happens is at the beginning they'll be all red and they'll be in unison, and as time goes on they get out of unison and get sort of all mixed up. So let's play this and we'll see they start red and then sort of green, and now they're just all mixed. And what's happening is each particular ribbon is one color each time it gets triggered, but they get triggered at different rates, so you get some mixing of the colors. So that's what RGBW by group does. RGBW by effect, let's just try that here, and you'll see on this one, for every single effect, it cycles through red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white. And so the net effect of that is that there's more mixing of the colors. There's because there's going to be different colors on every ribbon. And for this particular theme, in my opinion, this is not all that pleasing, but I'm doing this just for demonstration purposes so you can see what they do. For other themes, the red, green, blue, white by effect looks very good. But moving on here, the next option you can see is color wheel by group. So let's do sequence all on that and see what that does. And so again, it's going to be assigning the each time the theme gets triggered, they're all going to get assigned the same color, but it's going to cycle through the colors in a color wheel. So we have red and then orange and then yellow, and then it's going to go to white and then green and then some blues and then purples. And again, each ribbon is going to cycle through the color wheel at a different rate because it's happening each time it gets triggered. And so they start out being all red, but as time goes on they get mixed up and you get different colors from the color wheel here. So I think that looks pretty cool. I didn't care for the RGBW stuff, but this color wheel by group looks pretty good. Now let's try color wheel by effect. That's going to do the same thing as RGBW by effect, except it's going to step through the color wheel for each. You see, he's stepping through the color wheel for each effect as it gets triggered here. So let's play that and see what that looks like. You can see they all start out with red, and then now as time goes on the colors are all mixed up. Now myself, I don't really care for this, but again, there are other themes where color wheel by effect works very well, and the purpose of this is just to show you what each of these different color options do. Now you can just choose one color, like I just chose purple, and as you can expect, this is going to make all the effects be purple, and if we play it, then they'll all be purple. Now next it says color by time. The default is not by time, meaning that option is not being used, and if we go and try to change it to say every 2 seconds, it's going to give me a message box here that says to use color by time you must first set color to one of these 4 things, because if I've got to be set to be purple all the time, it doesn't make sense to change it every 2 seconds because there's nothing to change it to. So I'm going to change it to RGBW by group and then set this to every 2 seconds. So what that's going to do is it's going to cycle through red, green, blue, white by groups, but it's going to do it every 2 seconds. So you can see up here during this first 2 seconds everything that gets triggered is red, and everything through the next 2 seconds, everything gets triggered as green, and then in these 2 seconds it's blue, and if we keep going you'll see it goes white, and then red, green, blue, white, and it just keeps cycling through those colors. And you might ask, why is there some mixing here? Well, these effects got triggered in the first 2 seconds, and they happen to last for a long time, so the tail end of him ends up bleeding over and mixing with the green portion here. Let's play that, and we'll see that at first they're all red, and then they turn to all green, and then they turn to all blue, and then they turn to all white, and then back to red. So you can do that, and of course you can make that change every 1 second or 2 seconds or on up to 10 seconds. Next we have movement. Now all these effects move, but this is talking about the start and end points of the effect. When we play this, those 5 groups are always being played in the same place, whereas if we say slow right, then each time they get triggered they're going to be moved to the right by one pixel. So what happens is they're not going to get lined up. As time goes on, they get more and more misaligned. And myself, this particular theme, I think it looks best to just use none. So to illustrate why you might use movement, I'm going to choose Morphs Colliding, and I'll leave these things set the same, and I'll go back to movement of none. Let's sequence all, and we'll see what Morphs Colliding looks like. You can see it's 2 morphs coming together and colliding in the middle, and they're changing through red, green, blue, and white every 2 seconds. And the movement of none means that their start point and end point is not going to move. So that's why they stay centered here. So if we change to slow right on this theme, you'll see that they all start out in the middle, but each time they get triggered they get moved down by 1 pixel. And when the endpoint hits the bottom, it wraps around to the top, and so as time goes on they get sort of mixed up. And slow left just goes the other direction. I might mention that, if these ribbons were laid out horizontally, then it would be moving slow to the left or slow to the right, but since they're vertical, left and right get changed up and down, and slow left ends up moving them up 1 pixel every time they get triggered. And of course when the end point gets to the top, it wraps around to the bottom. And we can do fast right. That's going to move them 4 pixels every time they get triggered, and so it's going to move faster towards the bottom, and so they get mixed up faster when you do that. And of course if you do fast left, it's going to do the same thing except go upward, so we don't need to demonstrate that. Pass by, what it does is it moves one endpoint faster than the other, so one of the endpoints is going to pass by the other one, and so you get more variation in the length of the morphs. And you can see some of them are really short here and some of them are long. So that's what pass by does. And then random is what you'd expect. It just randomly chooses the start and end point of the morphs, and so they just sort of randomly get placed all over the place. And then last here is the intensity. The default is 100%. You can change that to say 40%, and that of course makes them all get dimmer. If we play that, then they're all at 40% and much dimmer. And I might say, if you wanted to get back to the default settings here, this says set TCM combo 1. That sets these controls back to their defaults. So now TCM 1 is starburst and native and not by time and none, just like it was before. But that just sets the TCM combos. It doesn't set this. So if I wanted to go back to the defaults on the ribbon assignments, I would have to do that. And if I do sequence all, you'll see that it's going to look just like it did the first time I created an instant sequence. Now, I've just gone through and shown you what these different settings do. You can also just do roll dice, which randomly chooses some things up here, and actually it's sort of semi-random. You notice this first time I clicked on roll dice, it chose color by time every 4 seconds for all of the TCM combinations, but it randomly chose some things up here. If you click on roll dice again, it cycles through these. See, now all of them are not by time, and it chooses some other things, because normally it makes more sense to either have all these not by time or have them all by time. And so I have it cycle through that. But you know, like, let's try that one. That just randomly chose some stuff. It may be pleasing, it may be not. I mean, that's sort of interesting. But you can do what I did, where you set all the ribbons to be the same TCM, and then just try some of the themes up here to see what they look like, so that you can find the ones you like. And that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in this tutorial. As you can guess, this creates some really cool effects, but if you do the entire song with one set of TCM combos, it gets sort of boring. And so what you want to do is choose different TCM combinations for different portions of the song, and you do that with this sequence the selection only button up here. But if you want to learn how to do that, then there's a separate tutorial that just covers that. And that's all I want to cover for this tutorial. So thank you very much, and have a super day.